Joining me right now is California Congressman, House Intelligence Committee ranking member, House Ways and Means Committee member, and author of the book, Countdown to Socialism. Congressman Devin Nunes is here, the lead investigator on the Russia probe for 4 years going. Congressman, it's always great to see you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Great to be with you this morning. Thank you.
So here we are, under 60 days away from the election, Congressman, and we still haven't heard from John Durham. You heard what Mark Meadows just said. Do you believe we will see more guilty pleas in addition to Kevin Kleinsmith, who altered a document that was evidence?
Well, it's hard for us to know because we are not involved in the investigation, which I do think this is a good thing. I've said this many times. Unlike the Mueller witch hunt, we don't know what Durham is up to. We can only make our criminal referrals, Maria, which we have done. If you notice, there's a lot of people that either aren't talking or they're talking, they're writing books and they're coming out and talking. So that's giving more visibility into what we've been able to see. And the challenge has always been is who ordered the kill shot, so to speak? Who ordered this? So clearly there was a conspiracy here. This wasn't just dreamt up by a good old FBI agent that was working hard and came across some Russians that maybe were trying to do something with the Trump campaign. How do we know that that's not true? Because there is no evidence that there were any Russians involved. This was all about the dossier, the Clinton campaign. They inserted this in 2016 into the campaign and essentially was a bunch of lies. So we don't know. My guess is they're trying to piece all this together. There are a lot of documents that we've seen. There's a lot of text messages we've seen. That's all evidence. But I think at the end of the day, it's who ordered this. And that's the question that Durham has to get to the bottom of. Who wanted this done?
And Congressman, I think that John Durham is looking at some of the activity we saw before July of 2016. Of course, I mentioned that date because that is when the FBI claims that they launched an investigation into the Trump campaign, July of 2016. And yet way before then, we see former spies, some people might call them washed up spies, like Stefan Halper, getting paid huge sums of money right before the surveillance on Carter Page and the Trump campaign began. We know that Stefan Halper was paid $200,000 in 2015, $411,000 in 2016 for doing a report on China and Russia, which I'm not buying. Academia pays that kind of money. So I ask you, do you believe that John Brennan was running a book inside the Pentagon, paying money out through the Office of Net Assessments to spies to go entrap Trump people?
Well, you bring up the key point, and that was how were taxpayer dollars going to the Defense Department and ending up in what I call the Cambridge Club, where they had a bunch of former British spies and, as you said, supposed American spies that were hiring these people that appear, when you look at the work that they did, it was just bogus work that wouldn't have taken that kind of money to do. American taxpayers must have gotten ripped off. So we don't know who organized that. Look, my guess is that and this is just a guess, well, I think it would be an educated guess, I should say, but there must be ties between the Fusion GPS people who hired the foreign spy that supposedly went to these Russian sources and the Cambridge Club. There's too many ties there. There's too many ties between, remember Alexander Downer, who supposedly was he's this Australian diplomat that happened to just run into a Trump official who happened to just say something about emails. None of this has ever added up. It just has that feel and look that Hillary Clinton was probably really nervous about her emails being found that were on her illegal server. And they were looking to do both an end run around that to make it look like somehow the Trump campaign was involved, and at the same time have an October surprise trying to try Donald Trump to Russia, when it was really the Obama administration and Hillary Clinton had all the ties to Russia. For God's sake, they're the ones who had remember the Russian reset? So this is why these questions you ask are deep. There's a lot there. And this is why I'm sure why it's taking Durham so long to get to the bottom of.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out John Brennan because I know he had an interview with John Durham a couple of weeks ago, and my sources continue to point to him as the overall mastermind in terms of these massive payouts to former spies that ended up, you know, Stefan Halper was supposed to be doing a report on China and Russia. Meanwhile, he's in Cambridge, bumping into Carter Page, George Papadopoulos, and Sam Clovis as well. We'll have to wait and see what Durham comes up with.
And Maria, one little quick thing to add on that. One little quick thing to add there is don't forget, both Papadopoulos and Page and these were essentially just kind of low-level campaign people, and in some cases just volunteers. So that's why this is so questionable. What would all these people with these long resumes be doing, meeting with these people and what appears to be setting them up with lies and deceit and mistruths?
And why were they paid so much money? Stefan Halper making $411,000 in one lump sum right before Carter Page is surveilled. And also, why haven't they come down to testify? How come Lindsey Graham keeps saying he's going to call witnesses and Stefan Halper has not been called? Alexander Downer has not been called. All questions our audience wants answers to. But let me switch gears and ask you about Hunter Biden. Apparently in hot water again. You were the first lawmaker that brought China up to me 3.5 years ago because you were doing a deep dive on China in the intelligence area, and so that is one issue that keeps coming up. A fund co-run by the son of the Democratic presidential nominee is helping facilitate the sale of Michigan-based auto parts maker Hennige's Automotive to one of China's main military aircraft makers, Aviation Industry Corporation of China, that is AVIC. This is according to John Solomon. Congressman, what can you tell us about Biden's connections to China and why his son's fund has enabled this acquisition of a company that is tied to the Chinese military?
Well, I can cut right to the chase. This is the overall problem with Joe Biden hiding in his basement and not having real questions be posed to him by the press. So his son not only had a lot to do in China, where he raised money for a fund. The way I understand it is that fund actually failed. At the same time, his son was involved in Ukraine, as you know. Now, what did they try to do to Trump? They tried to claim that it was Trump who had something to do with Ukraine. So it's very similar, and it follows along this same line that whatever they're doing, they accuse you of doing. Biden needs to sit down and ask these questions, and Donald Trump should be asking him these questions also, because, you know, you've seen the pictures of Biden being over there, Biden threatening the prosecutor in Ukraine, Biden going to China, his son setting up a fund. Now, and look, it doesn't mean that any of this is illegal, but the American taxpayers and American voters have a right to know whether that or not they think this is proper or not. And if the president or if the vice president's son is over in China trying to raise money while they're brokering a deal back in 2015, do you really believe that Biden is ever going to get tough on China? My guess is he's not. He's going to be very weak on China.
Yeah, well, look, I know you talk a little about this in your new book, Countdown to Socialism. Congrats on the book. Before you go, I got to ask you about the fires in California. These fires are taking place, Congressman, in your district. You're headed up there this morning. What can you tell us?
Well, yeah, I'm getting ready to leave right now to be briefed. The Trump officials from the Department of Agriculture are going to be out. This is what happens when you have socialism spread across the country. We ended most of our timber harvesting here in this area. And in fact, where this fire has started just right above where I live, the ashes are everywhere, the smoke, it's covering the sun. It's a total disaster. This was all an area now up to almost 200,000 acres, Maria, where people lived, people worked, they used the trees. We would make timber out of the trees. And over the last 20 years, since all this has been shut down because of radical environmentalism, this is kind of similar to the people that want to stop fracking and oil drilling and everything else. We've dealt with that out here in California. What happens is fuel begins to burn. These plants grow. We get sun, we get water, we get snow. It fills up, it catches on fire, and now we have a total disaster. It's a total disaster here. It's unprecedented for me living in this region, and I'm going to go up and see some of the devastation here in a few hours.
Really, really sad to see. Our condolences and prayers to you and your district and everybody dealing with these wildfires. Congressman, thanks so much. Good to see you this morning.
Thank
Your
you.
new book, Countdown to Socialism, is out.